Hello and welcome to Code to Cloud. I'm your host as always, Kevin Evans, and today we're going to be talking all things Azure Terraform, right? Which I know is going to get a lot of people like, ooh, I need to tune in for this one, right? Um, I've got my esteemed colleague from the product group on the Azure Terraform team, Stepen Ma. Stepen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. Excited to be here.
Awesome. We were talking offline briefly, and I was telling Stepen that he's responsible for me being here. It's kind of a weird gathering of the galaxies kind of thing. So Stepen was behind getting the Azure Terraform. I still call it that. It's called the Azure Terraform Exporter tool now, but I still call it Azure Terraform, right? And when that first came out, I did an episode with Mike Pfeiffer, and it got a lot of hits. Like, people were loving that tool, and I'm still wowing customers with it now when they're handwriting their Terraform manifest. I'm like, no, we've got a tool for that, and it keeps on getting better, right? So maybe we'll talk about that later on, Stepen. I don't want to steal your thunder, but last week there was HashiCon, right? Was it called HashiCon? And do you know what? I didn't even know it existed, right, as an actual event. When I told folks about it, they were like, I wish I'd have spent my budget going to that, right? It looked very cool. I heard there was like tacos, Terraform tachos, right, that you could get and little souvenirs, and it was in the wonderful city of Boston, right? So a friend of mine, Ned Balance, we're doing actually a session on Azure landing zones next week and the Terraform variant. So I'm gonna deploy that live. What could go wrong, right? So I'm looking forward to that. But Stepen, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself a little bit? I know I gave people a bit of a background, and let's tell folks what we're going to be talking about today. It's some of the highlights, right, from last week's announcements.
Yeah. So I'm Steven. I've been working on Azure Terraform pretty much since I joined Microsoft, and I've been working on everything from the Azure Provider to the AzAPI Provider, as well as Kevin kind of referenced, I helped with the Azure Export for Terraform experience. As and we also just anything that really has to do with Terraform on Azure, I'm involved in, and I also help manage the community, our community that has monthly community calls, and we kind of all get together and talk about all the stuff that's coming up on the roadmap, and they have been a great resource just in terms of enthusiasm and also just a great way to learn and get feedback on some of our features as we're rolling them out or testing them. So that's a little bit about me on a very high level.
A lot of love for Terraform out there, right? Especially on Azure. So yeah, let's talk about some of the. I mean, I was blown away by some of the announcements, so I'm not gonna talk about them now, but I'm gonna let you go through them because I was like, yes, at last, right? On some of the features. Why don't you just roll through a couple and we'll get the juices flowing, right?
Yeah. So as we announced at HashiConf, there are three big announcements really that we made. The first one is that the Azure Export for Terraform experience is coming to the portal, and that is in private preview. But public preview we are hoping to get out in the very near future. And I'll tell you that when we had the Azure Export for Terraform conversations with customers, we would talk to people and they would just unprompted go, yeah, so can you get this in the portal? Can you get this in the portal? And that kind of happened over and over again. And we're just like, okay, let's get it in the portal. And we have seen so much enthusiasm. Your colleague there, Ned, I think he posted on LinkedIn a photo of our session just
That's
with
right.
the GUI there, and it got what, like 1,000 reactions in 24 hours, something crazy like that. So there's a lot of enthusiasm around this feature. Really excited to bring it out. We can dive more into it. Second is that Azure CoPilot now has some support for Terraform. What we mean when we say support is we mean that it actually has proper training on the right up-to-date documentation and high-quality examples. So you're not going to get generated configs from Azure RM 2.11 right now. You're going to get the latest up-to-date quality examples of code through the CoPilot. And we do have some other fun stuff coming up there. We're working on and a GitHub Copilot there as well, but that is in the works. And then lastly, the AzAPI Provider. We've released 2.0 this week, and with 2.0, there's a ton of great features, no more JSON, really high modular configuration abilities there, and we really do think that with this 2.0 release, you have two outstanding providers to use for your day-to-day Terraform experience between Azure and AzAPI. So happy to dive into any of those, Kevin, but in a few minutes, that's what we've got from HashiConf / this year.
I'd like to start with the exporter tool in the portal. I saw a screenshot flying around LinkedIn, and I was like, where do I go and get a piece of this, right? To check it out. Notably, I could see our other tools on there as well, like Biceps on there as well. I thought, I don't know who said it, but Microsoft's a big believer in, we don't care what flavor of ice cream you like, just as long as you use Azure ice cream, right? Or eat Azure ice cream. So yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, that's huge. Now, I know like the mindset would have been the CLI tool that we previously had, right? Or we're still using because everybody writes code. But there's still a lot of ClickOps out there. And like I was explaining to the community and customers, right? Like when a new service or something in Azure that I need to work on, I've never worked on before, I will go into the portal to figure it out first. And then I normally reverse engineer it using the exporter tool, right, to write the Terraform code, because you go onto the public registry or whatever, and not all the features or switches are on there. And sometimes it's better to do it that way, right? The reverse engineering way, because then well, I clicked that, right, and selected that radio button, or I applied that configuration, and then that helps build out your manifest also. So what are you saying? Is it during the deployment process? Because when you can export templates at the beginning of the deployment process, or do I use another process once it's deployed? How do I get those Terraform manifests out?
Yeah, all you really need to do is just head over to, so people have been asking, like you mentioned, where the heck do I get started?
They want it, right?
Yeah, they do. It's currently in release candidate, so rc.portal.azure.com. But if you go over there, after you have your latest resource exported, or anywho, it'll sort of show up underneath the automation tab of a resource group or a resource, and you have the options there to essentially pick between Terraform and Bicep and ARM templates. And like you said before, we are big on that ice cream flavor analogy. Pick whichever one you like. But yeah, essentially you can go there. You'll see some properties. It's a lot of hard-coded stuff, so we definitely don't recommend it as a copy, paste, fire off sort of deal there. But what we've made the conscious decision to do is, rather than try to make it as workable as possible right from the get-go, we'd rather expose all the properties from the get-go so that you can see, okay, this empty string probably means that that wasn't really configured by me. And you can kind of work your way through all the variables and understand, okay, these properties all are here. So, yeah.
Awesome. So, the $1 million question: how do folks, like, say if you're like me, right? You're like leading life on the bleeding edge, right? How do I get access to this, right? And what requirements do I need to meet to get access to that feature at the moment? Because like you said, it's an RC, right? We're still lining out, bugs, features, that kind of thing. Microsoft has a very vigorous support process around our services. Like, what do we do?
Yeah, so this private preview, we are restricting to community members. The nice thing is that a community member, or it's not hard to get into the community. You just need to go to aka.ms/Azure Terraform to sign up. And once you sign up, there's like an auto-generated email that gets sent to everyone to welcome people. But I also have been, because we've gotten so many requests, every day I've been blasting to the new registrars of the community instructions on how to sign up for the new feature. And then once they go in, there basically is this registration command you need to run in either the CLI, Cloud Shell, or PowerShell, and then that will be pending for a bit. But then once you're actually approved, I try to send an email out and say, hey, you're good to go. It's a manual process, albeit not for the long terms, but for all those people, we really value the community and we want to make sure that people are able to sort of get access to that. And yeah, that is the way that you would sort of unlock it today.
Sounds like someone might need to do a video on the process. I might be able to help with that after this, because that's exactly what I'm going to be doing.
Not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea, right? I might put one together. It shouldn't take me too long, right? So that is awesome. And I think people would want to see that, right? Like I sneakily tried to do it and I was locked out because I didn't have the activation process. So maybe I'll go through the whole process of getting that done and we'll get that distributed. That's fantastic news. Again, we're evolving, right? The ice cream's all there. Come to the ice cream shop, right? Known as Azure. What else was? What was the second thing that you mentioned that we announced? We had the new Azure API, right?
Yep, and we have CoPilot as well. So
let's talk about CoPilot, right? Because I mean, everybody's talking about CoPilot. I've become a very lazy developer. I don't think I could go back now. If that makes sense, right? I'm a big fan of GitHub Copilot as well, right? So let's talk about Azure Copilot. I mean, I didn't know, like, I heard we had an Azure Copilot, but I wasn't too sure, where it was and how it works. Do you just want to briefly talk about it?
Yeah. The Azure CoPilot is currently on the portal. This one you don't need to go to release candidate for, so it's actually available today in ms.portal, or rather just portal.azure.com. You can go ahead and there's a button on there near the top that says CoPilot. You can go ahead and click on that. And if you enter in anything in terms of, you can essentially say, hey, give me a Linux web app configuration, or hey, help me stand up a Kubernetes cluster for my application. And then you can also say, give that to me in Terraform. And whatever you say, give it to me in Terraform, or something along those lines, we will basically use our own model that is sort of understood and made sure to handle those requests to crisp, up-to-date documentation and examples and pass that back to you. So the code there is actually, in my opinion, it's a great place to get started in terms of your configurations. So if you're new to a service, if you're new to a feature, definitely I would recommend using that. It's currently only available for Azure RM, but AzAPI support is coming out in the very, very near future, as well as we are working, as I mentioned before, on hopefully a GitHub Copilot down the road. So
that'll be awesome. I always say that to folks, right? Like, even if it's GitHub Copilot or whatever, right? Anything that's writing code, it gets you 70% the way there, right? Like, and when I first started using these tools, right? Like, it's gonna be longer than a year ago now, right? The improvements are getting better and better to the point where I had this joke where I committed something and my peer review came back and they went, "You didn't write that code." And they went, "Why?" I said, "It's pretty good, right?" Because Copilot helped me write it. So I thought that was hilarious. It was like, there's no spelling mistakes. Like, what's going on, right? And it was all formatted correctly, whatever, right? So again, I remember when I started off on my infrastructure as a code journey, it's quite intimidating. Right, I know a lot of organizations are doing this now and it's pretty mainstream, but there's still edge cases where you've got infrastructure folks that are becoming developers, right? And they've never done this before. So it's great to know that the tools are there, right, to do that.
Yep.
But yeah, so let's talk about the Azure API and why we have it. Because our friends over on the Bicep team like to gloat with day zero support, right?
Yeah.
Rightly so, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
So one of the decisions that was made about Azure RM before I was even on the team was we wanted to create a provider that was easy to use,
Yep.
that just abstracted complexities away from people. And we've partnered closely with HashiCorp for years on that. But since we've started working on Terraform, the number one complaint for years was that services would be out in Azure but not available on the Azure ARM provider. AzAPI was our attempt to address that. Before, for those who really, really remember back in the day, there was like this Azure RM template deployment thing that you could do, and it was basically spinning up an ARM template, and it was it
It was
was not a great
painful.
experience.
I was
Yes,
there.
that was not
You
great.
you
Yeah,
you
you were
you,
there.
you wrapped a Terraform manifest file around an ARM template.
And it didn't have state either. So that wasn't a great experience, and we knew we had to do something about it. So we actually went ahead, and since we work so closely with the Bicep folks now, we kind of leaned in and said, "Hey, help us sort of learn from you." And we released this provider that had day zero support for anything in the Azure management plane, just automatically. No code was being written to get that support out, which meant that you could kind of access it immediately. Now, the thing that I think we've shot ourselves in the foot with is we initially said this is a stopgap. We
That's right.
initially
Yeah.
said it's just there until something gets GA'd and available in Azure. But we've changed that stance, not just us on a Microsoft side, but actually both Microsoft and HashiCorp were partnering together on a joint statement that essentially says that Azure RM is the provider for stability, for simplicity, for ease of use, and AzAPI is the provider for digesting complexity for the cutting edge and for consistency in module development because it is a generic resource authoring experience, which means that everything can sort of be used there. But 2.0 is out this week, and we think there's a lot of really good functionality there.
That's awesome. That's awesome news. Yeah, I was told the same thing. Like it was a stopgap until something turned up on the registry, right? But now, it's going mainstream, right? So use it more, basically.
Yeah, you can totally stand everything up on AzAPI. So there is actually the modules that are built by the Azure Verified Modules team. They have actually kind of come to us and said, hey, let's partner closely together. And they are going ahead and trying to do most of their stuff in AzAPI for those modules because for module experience, it's just better. Yeah.
I was gonna ask how it tied back to AVM, Azure Verified Modules. We had them on the show a couple months back. I will put a link to the episode. So I know Jack and Matt pretty well, right? Colleagues from the UK, do some great work over there, right? Like, there's nothing but love for AVM modules as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've got customers who are like completely switched over to those, right? So it's good to see that we're tying up all the dots, right? Like joining them all up.
Yeah.
Consistent approach.
And they say sort of our customer zero in the sense that, for example, one of our 2.0 features that we released was a retry block. So on a resource, you can sort of configure a retry. And if the resource is not found or you're digesting any sort of errors that you would expect to be there, sometimes resources take a while to provision.
That's
You
right.
basically are able to you're able to configure a retry with some randomization and all of that until a certain timeout to essentially digest those errors. So for module development, they have been using features like that. They essentially came to us and said, "Hey, can you help us with this or that?" And we built it for them because we think that they are our best pulse of anyone really to understand how Azure modules are being built today and what sort of gaps in functionality there are there. So any major release that is being shipped of the provider, it's actually going through them first. There is a very close partnership between the two teams.
That is fantastic news. Right? All the right minds in the right room. I love that.
Yeah.
When you talk about resources taking a while, I'm looking at our networking components right there, right? We all know the culprits. Take a
Okay.
while sometimes to deploy. Right?
Yes,
So
just a
that's
bit.
good to know. That's good to know. Um, that's awesome. Was there anything else that you shared at the conference? Is there anything that you want to talk about? I know we're going to touch on the community aspects there, right? Towards the end of this, but is there anything else that you want folks to know about when it comes to the Azure Terraform?
I think those were our main things. I mean, it was a 30-minute session, so it was jam-packed in there. We are already running over, I think, almost at this point in the world of that session. I would say for anyone who is scared of AzAPI because they looked at it 2 years ago and saw JSON,
Yeah,
it's gone.
we've
The
took the pain
JSON
away.
the JSON monster is not out to get you anymore. It's put to rest. It's all HCL. It has all the HCL functionalities. You can for each your subnets. You can do whatever you love uh, in there. So definitely go ahead and check it out. We really do believe that if you are an AKS consumer, if you are a
Oh yeah,
container apps user, if you're someone who is needing to constantly switch version to version to get the latest functionality, just save yourself some trouble and go use AzAPI 2.0. You're not going to regret it. And if you do, come talk to me because that means that I did a cruddy job of building out the experience there. But I'm saying it now. I'm putting myself out there and saying I think we did a good job on improving the experience authoring wise there. Oh, and make sure to use the VS Code extension. That thing has code
always.
samples built in there. Always use the VS Code extension. Not the Azure Terraform one, but the AzAPI Provider one specifically.
Right.
It's
Okay.
very, very good for authoring.
I'll put that in the notes as well. Because we know we have our quirks, like Radius team have an extension, right? Like a different version of Bicep there, right? That kind of thing. So,
Yep.
um, I think you hit the nail on the head there. There's like a profile, right? Like an AKS user uses Terraform most of the time, and guess what? Microsoft doesn't actually control the version control. We obviously take from the upstream from the CNCF. So latest features, right? It's just it's rolling thunder, right? So
Yep.
um, it's good to see that we've got like a fix there, right, to help developers out with that. So I don't know about you, Stephen, but I've been getting a lot of emails from somebody as of late, right? Around the community stuff, Azure Terraform. It's great to see. I can't rate these calls enough. They're very technical. They're very intimate with the product team, right? It's a great place to get feedback. I've been on the Bicep, the Radius ones. I always learn something because you're demoing the new feature, right? It's like getting free training. It's amazing, right? And also it means that I've heard all sorts of feedback, and I just want to advocate for the PMs here, right? They want to hear all sorts of feedback because that's the only way that we can make these products more polished, right? So, do you want to talk about the community initiatives that you're ramping up and how that's going to work moving forward?
Yeah, so the Terraform on Azure community, again, aka.ms/Azure Terraform. And it's not just about that one link, that one form that you fill out that gets you access to stuff like the export portal experience. It is also a Slack. We have a Slack that is full of practitioners. They'll just kind of drop a, hey, I'm having problems with an app gateway because no one ever has problems with app gateway. And then you
Exactly.
kind of talk together and figure out how do we kind of debug it? Where did I go wrong here? Or maybe, my deployment ordering or whatever might have gone wrong there. We also have other folks come in and sort of talk about their own things they're passionate about. We've had people like Matt and also Simone from Arcana, Simone Bennett, who is a huge help with helping to the Azure Landing Zone stuff. We've had Ned on the show. We're on the call. We've had Mark Tinderholt, also known as Azure Terraformer. So we've had a bunch of enthusiastic, great people in this space just come on and talk about stuff. And then sometimes, we just kind of take the show back because hey, we got a bunch of stuff we need to talk about. And I'll tell you
Exactly.
right now, our call that we were just on like a couple hours ago, I couldn't even keep up with the chat. There is lot of enthusiasm about the stuff that we're putting out here, which is great to see. It's really good to see. But we are just continuing to try to make everyone in this community of practitioners feel heard. I feel like there are people out there that are working on this and that they can talk to them and that they are getting the features they want to see just essentially delivered to them. So that's really the goals here, just sparking that sort of joy and enthusiasm for all of the practitioners who I know are, this is their 40, 50, 60 hours in a week, just chugging away at this. Yeah.
Yeah, that was me. That was me once. Yeah. The utopia is that you do everything as infrastructure as a code in your Azure environment. So you're just trying to figure everything out, right? Every you trip up, or if there's a bug or whatever, right? Like there's a couple of moving parts in there, right? So it's good to know there's a community there.
Yep.
So how do people find Stepen, right? If they want to follow you or
yeah.
get to know you a little bit better, right? On the tech scene.
So there is the Azure Terraform Twitter. Mark and I both will tweet on that, but that is somewhere where I will share a lot of the updates that our team is going on through, as well as our YouTube channel. There's a video there with me on a bad hair day talking about Azure Export for Terraform, so if anyone wants to watch that. And the community call recordings are all uploaded there, so definitely make sure to keep track of those there. And then we have just personally, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn. That's usually where I will post some of the stuff myself as things are rolling out. So those are all the different handlers that you can get to. And then when you sign up for the community, we don't have like a bot that sends that. It's literally my inbox that gets flooded with everything. So you have a direct email to me. Please don't spam me. But if you have questions or if you have concerns or feedback, we always welcome those things. And like you said before, our favorite people to talk to are those who are really out there in the field doing the nitty gritty, and they have their opinions, they have their experiences, and they're coming to us and saying, we need this, or I've been struggling with that for months. And just getting to talk to each of you who feels that way, you're really a gold mine to us because you help us unlock you. So definitely make sure to stay in touch, and would love to hear more from you.
Love it. Absolutely love it. All right. Well, I think we're about time. Stay posted for my improv video of trying to sign up and get my my portal experience for Azure Terraform signed up. We'll get that posted as well. I'm going to include a lot of information on what Steven's talked about in the show notes, right, below. And as always, if you like what we're doing, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, right, to the Code to Cloud YouTube channel. Or you can connect with us at connect.codetocloud.io as well, right, to follow us on the socials. I just want to say thank you again, Steven, for coming on the show. Perfect timing, straight after the HashiConf, right? So some great updates there, and hopefully we'll get you back when you've got your next big feature released, right? We can talk about it then.
Sounds good. Yep. Thank you, Kevin, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. Right. Well, on that note, bye for now.
Cheers.
Yeah.